Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a book that really promises to unlock some secrets. Secrets to consistent improvement, no matter what your goals are. We are talking about James Clear's massive bestseller, Atomic Habits. And our mission today really is to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from this book, give you a shortcut basically to understanding its core ideas, what makes it stand out, and, well, why it might just be a game changer for you.
Absolutely. And the author, James Clear, he's quite fascinating. He's known as a writer, speaker, behavioral science expert.
Yeah.
But his background also includes biomechanics, which is interesting.
Biomechanics, huh?
Yeah. And he really developed his ideas on his blog first, which just exploded, millions of readers. That really set the stage for Atomic Habits. It became this huge international bestseller, translated into over 50 languages. His style is just very approachable, but it's all backed by solid research. People really connect with that.
And he has this central idea, this thesis right at the start that kind of makes you stop and think. He says, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. So think about that for a second. What does that actually mean for your own efforts? It really shifts the focus, doesn't it? Away from just wishing for things.
It really does. It's transformative because the book then gets into the nitty-gritty, the science and psychology of how habits actually work. And Clear's argument is that real success, lasting success, doesn't come from these massive overnight changes or just pure motivation, which fades, right? Instead, it's about focusing on tiny, consistent changes, these atomic habits, as he calls them. Small actions, but powerful. When you repeat them, they compound over time. So the whole idea is building systems, robust systems, that make the good habits almost inevitable, and the bad ones really hard to stick with.
Okay, so if you fall to the level of your systems, the big question is, how do you actually build good ones? How do you build those robust systems? And that's where he brings in this framework, which is actually pretty simple, but seems really effective. The 4 laws of behavior change, these are the practical steps.
Exactly. That's the core of it. The first law is make it obvious. This is all about making sure the cues for your good habits are right there in your face, basically.
Like visual cues.
Yeah, visual cues in your environment, putting your gym bag by the door or using habit tracking so you actually see your progress. It's about designing your surroundings to nudge you in the right direction, effortlessly, ideally.
So it's less about just gritting your teeth and using willpower and more about setting up your environment cleverly. That feels different from how we usually think about discipline.
That's a really good point. And Clear addresses that directly. He emphasizes that willpower, well, it's finite. It runs out like a muscle. So instead of fighting your own laziness or resistance head on, you make the good choice the easiest choice. The path of least resistance. You're kind of outsmarting your brain, which leads to the second law. Make it attractive.
Okay, attractive. How does that work?
This is about making the habit itself more appealing, something you actually look forward to, or at least don't dread. You can use techniques like temptation bundling, pairing something you want to do with something you need to do.
Like only watching your favorite Netflix show while you're on the exercise bike.
Exactly.
Right.
Suddenly the exercise bike seems a lot more attractive. It taps into that immediate reward system our brains love. Or using social incentives, making it a group thing.
That's clever. Does he talk about figuring out what is attractive to different people? Is it just trial and error?
He really emphasizes understanding your own motivations, your own cravings. What do you find rewarding? And then you strategically link those rewards to the habit you're trying to build. Because we're wired for that immediate gratification, finding ways to make the process feel good is key, even if the big payoff is down the road.
Right. Which brings us neatly to number 3. Make it easy. This one feels huge because it tackles that initial resistance, that inertia. I remember trying to start writing consistently. I'd set this goal, write for an hour every day, never stuck. But Clear's idea of just write one sentence, that feels almost too easy. Achievable, though.
It does feel almost like cheating. And that's kind of the beauty of it. The goal isn't some heroic effort on day one. It's just to start, to show up.
Yeah.
You lower the friction. That one sentence can easily become 2, then a paragraph. He talks about the 2-minute rule as well.
Oh, yeah, the 2-minute rule.
If a habit takes less than 2 minutes to do, just do it now. Don't put it off. It just removes the excuses. And then the 4th law ties it all together. Make it satisfying.
So getting that immediate reward.
Exactly. After you do the habit, you need some kind of immediate positive feedback, a sense of accomplishment. This helps your brain associate the habit with pleasure and makes you want to do it again. It could be something as simple as putting a check mark on your habit tracker, that little dopamine hit. Or maybe a small, healthy treat after a workout. And he emphasizes that all four of these laws, they're not just nice ideas. They're grounded in psychological research, neuroscience, with tons of real-world examples in the book.
You know, reading through it, something really jumped out at me as a major strength, maybe the thing that makes Atomic Habits feel different from other books in this space. It's the science-driven insights. He doesn't just say, do this.
Yeah.
He often gives you a peek behind the curtain, explains the why. Like why putting your running shoes out works isn't just convenience, it's leveraging cognitive biases. Or how shifting your identity taps into deep psychological needs. It makes the whole process feel smarter.
Absolutely. And he does it so well. He takes potentially complex research, maybe about dopamine pathways or implementation intentions, and translates it into really practical, actionable advice like make it attractive or make it obvious. He makes the science accessible without dumbing it down too much, which is quite a skill.
And alongside the why, you get the how through all the practical tools he provides. These are things you can actually use, right? Like habit trackers, which we mentioned, but also things like implementation intentions.
Right, which is that specific plan. I will do behavior at time and location.
Yeah, like I will meditate for 5 minutes right after my morning coffee in the kitchen. Cleary explains how just making that plan beforehand drastically increases your chances of actually doing it. It bypasses that in-the-moment decision fatigue.
It really does. And habit stacking, too.
Habit stacking, yeah. Build on what you already do.
Linking a new habit to one that's already ingrained, like after I brush my teeth, I will floss one tooth. Start small. These tools just lower the barrier to entry and help build that consistency. They make the good choice, the easy, almost automatic choice.
But honestly, for me, the most powerful idea, the one that really resonated, was identity-based habits. This felt like a fundamental shift, moving away from focusing just on the outcome, like I want to lose weight, towards focusing on the identity. I want to become the type of person who is healthy.
Yes, that's such a key distinction.
It reframes everything. The goal isn't the weight loss itself, it's embodying the identity of a healthy person through your actions. It makes the habits feel less like chores and more like affirmations, voting for who you want to be.
It's incredibly powerful psychologically, because if you start to truly believe I am a reader or I am an athlete, then the actions, reading daily, working out, they become expressions of who you are, not just things you force yourself to do. It changes the motivation entirely. And speaking of engaging, the engaging storytelling is another big plus.
Oh, definitely.
He uses so many great examples, stories of real people, from athletes to entrepreneurs to artists. It makes the principles much more memorable and, well, relatable. You see how it actually works in practice.
Yeah, it prevents it from being just dry theory. The stories really stick with you.
They really do ground it. But, in the spirit of a deep dive, we should probably touch on potential criticisms or things some readers notice. No book is perfect for everyone, right?
True. What are some of the things people mention?
Well, some readers find it can feel a bit repetitive at times. The core ideas, the four laws, they get reinforced quite a bit throughout the book, which, is probably intentional for learning and making it stick. But if you're a fast reader or already familiar with some concepts, you might notice it.
That makes sense. Repetition for reinforcement. What else?
For people who are already really deep into behavioral science or psychology, some parts might feel a little basic for advanced readers. It's definitely aimed at a broad audience, making complex ideas accessible rather than being, say, an academic text.
Right, it's translating the science for practical application.
Exactly. And one other nuance sometimes mentioned is that it maybe has more focus on formation than maintenance. It's fantastic for getting habits started, building that initial momentum, but the strategies for maintaining habits over the very long term, or specifically tackling really deeply ingrained, decades-old bad habits, might be explored in slightly less depth compared to the initial setup phase.
Okay, so bearing those nuances in mind, who is this really for? If you've maybe read The Power of Habit or Deep Work, is there still value here?
I'd say definitely yes. Its strength is that incredibly clear, actionable system. So this deep dive and the book itself, it's really ideal for anyone looking for more self-discipline, more consistency, better productivity. If you're struggling to break bad habits or finally build some good ones, this gives you a fantastic roadmap. And it applies so broadly students, professionals, creatives, athletes, really anyone aiming for that long-term personal growth. Absolutely. And maybe the best way to capture the book's power is through some of its most resonant quotes. They really stick with you. There's, habits are the compound interest of self-improvement.
Oh, that's a great one.
It perfectly captures that idea that small, consistent efforts don't just add up, they multiply over time.
Mm.
You might not see huge results day to day, but the long-term impact is massive.
Yeah.
Patience and consistency. Then there's every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become.
That ties right back into the identity-based habits idea we were talking about.
Exactly. It reframes your daily choices. You're not just doing a task, you're casting a vote, reinforcing the identity you want to build. It gives small actions real significance.
And one more, linking back to the core thesis. You should be far more concerned with your current trajectory than with your current results.
Focus on the process, not just the immediate outcome.
Precisely. It's about where your habits are taking you. Are you pointed in the right direction? That's more important than exactly where you stand today. It encourages a long-game perspective.
So, summing it all up, our final verdict from the source material is a clear 5 out of 5. Atomic Habits is just masterfully done. It's incredibly practical, easy to understand, but still deeply rooted in science. It's a fantastic guide for anyone looking to make real changes, small changes that lead to big transformations. Whether it's waking up earlier, exercising, reading more, stopping procrastination, the tools are here. So let's leave you with this thought. If your current trajectory, shaped by those tiny daily habits, matters more than today's results, what's one small, almost invisible vote you can cast today for the person you want to become tomorrow? What's one tiny atomic habit you could start? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into atomic habits. We really hope you found it useful.